Welcome back to our story. Today's episode is sponsored by the armored wildlife of the African savanna. Rhino critics call me the best horn polisher of 2020. Hippos rave. Neurons has the best watering holes of any content creator. We pick up Harriet's survival after her first major crisis. She was attacked and developed an infection, but ultimately endured. Today our goal is to finish attending to her basic needs. With shelter and food taken care of, we will focus on acquiring clothes and meds. Harriet continues where we left off with her repairs on the morning of May the 11th. After sunrise, she's outside sowing the crops of rice and cotton. She spends the following 24 hours working on agriculture and adds a passive cooler in her humble abode to deal with the threat of heat stroke. At 9 o'clock, she eats breakfast and once again depletes her food reserves. Before she can get foraging, a rainstorm sweeps the area. With no other choice, she must venture out into the harsh weather. By nightfall, the rain stops before it can extinguish the flames sparked by lightning strikes. With such dense vegetation, the blaze will spread quicker than our colonists can manage, but we cannot allow it to torch our farming. Harriet sets out to hold the fire at bay as best she can until the next rainfall can occur. With the fire properly herded away from the base, she rushes back to recuperate some strength before she has to repel the resurgent flames. By 6 o'clock of the 13th, she returns rested and fed to deal with the forest fire. Once again, the flames are held back, so she returns to base to meditate on her situation. At 11 o'clock, while scavenging a fresh kill from the bushes, another rainstorm arrives to extinguish the inferno. She ends the night with some repairs, eats the meat that will rot faster than the berries, and by midnight gets a well-earned rest. The following morning, she butchers another scavenged meal. The chinchilla fur could be used for crafting, but it's a fairly lucrative textile, so we will probably save that for trade and wait on our cotton for clothing. Shortly thereafter, we receive a quest to pick up a cache of 3 advanced components. It is guarded by 2 man-hunting chinchillas. This appears very valuable and fairly easy to achieve. The question is whether or not it's worth the risk. We will need advanced components, but not for quite a long while. The chinchilla fur and meat will also come in handy. The issue is that this would leave our base completely undefended and, without clothes or a ranged weapon, would leave our colonist open to damage that could result in infections, permanent damage, or possibly even an unlucky death. The quest will be available for 24 days, however, so we can wait for a better opportunity. As Harriet continues base repairs, Randy graces us with a self-tamed rhino. Now, this is quite a formidable guardian. In honor of one of my financial contributors, we will rename our new beast to Hypergig. We set him up with a grazing area around the base, excluding the crops, and a sleeping area just next to the northern entrance. During the following night, I spot an anima tree, and this is something I've never seen before. The anima tree is a rare tree with warm, skin-smooth bark and long iridescent leaves. Infused with bioluminescent microorganisms, anima trees develop a unique form of psychic symbiosis with surrounding life forms, allowing them to grow in a wide variety of biomes. If a person, psycaster or not, meditates near an anima tree, it will grow anima tree grass around its base. Once enough grass is grown, it becomes possible to carry out a psychic linking ritual with the tree and upgrade a person's psychic powers. Only tribal peoples know the secret of this ritual. Tribal psycasters are also able to draw psi focused from anima trees while meditating to them. Anima trees' psychic properties are weakened if artificial structures are placed nearby. They refuse to be caged or studied and must remain part of nature. Most tribes believe that anima trees are not simply trees, but are rather the physical extremities of a single world spirit. Since our colonist is not a tribalist, however, we will ignore this beautiful flora. Harriet heads out to scavenge a dead monkey. It turns out the cobras in the area are hunting down the smaller wildlife. Although we have cotton growing, if we can assemble enough leather to begin clothing her, then we will do so immediately. I also take notice that, despite having the double passion, our animal skill level is too low to train Hypergig. Once things reach a more stable point, we can get some taming done on the map to level her skill. Shortly thereafter, the Kai Pact raids us. Orange here has a bow for us, so her defeat will at the very minimum provide us with a much-needed ranged weapon. She has fairly decent stats, although her inability to do dumb labor is mildly inconvenient. I don't really spend much time analyzing it because we don't even know if she'll survive the encounter. Harriet and Hypergig set an ambush behind the open doorway and summarily kill the invader. Harriet tends to Hypergig's bruising and buries the dead raider. With everything stabilized, we continue developing our production with a stove. With food becoming increasingly consistent, it's time to cook meals. We had also built a tailoring bench prior to the assault, thus we need to reacquire wood. First, Harriet gets some rest while a group of travelers pass straight through our building. I just want to take a moment to say, what the hell? Well, hey, let's go straight to our destination. No, forget that. FBI, open up! By sunrise, our rice fields begin fully maturing, and Harriet cooks her first meal. As we check in on her progress, we can see the only thing she is contending with is darkness, nudity, and raw consumption. With cooked meals, that last one will fade. We're in the process of assembling a wardrobe. I'm not sure whether I want to waste the wood building, a torch, or simply deal with the penalty until we get electricity. I'm open to suggestions. Ultimately, these debuffs are very inconsequential, as she is in a very positive mindset. With so many stats in the green, we are in a very strong position to survive this episode. By midday, Harriet is scavenging another dead monkey. Since meat will decay faster than vegetation, I set 2 bills. Both are for simple meals, but I segregate and prioritize meat in order to use those perishing resources first. At sundown, Harriet goes on her first hunting trip to collect another chinchilla. The meat will go to sustenance, and its fur to be stockpiled for trade. As Harriet settles into bed on the first night of Juggist, Randy sounds the alarm for another raid. A member of the kinship of Krika, by the name of Krutanga Menkosa, will make an attempt on our life. She's a misandrist, incapable of dumb labor, so I'm not too thrilled about taking her in, but I've certainly seen worse options for a second colonist. Ultimately, she'll need to survive the beating she'll get from a damn rhino. Now, for some stupid reason, even while being stabbed to death, Hypergig can't be bothered to wake up from his beauty sleep. Thankfully, once I strip his sleeping spot out from under him, he kicks into action. On the bright side, we manage to incapacitate the attacker, allowing us to strip her of her tribal wear without it being tainted. The stars are evidently aligned for us this episode, as a slaver arrives before our prisoner can bleed out. Harriet temporarily turns the interior into a prison cell and levels her medical skill by keeping the prisoner alive. She's not worth much due to her very poor health condition, but that's 92 silver we wouldn't have made otherwise. So we trade her for the equal cost of 6 herbal medicine. This raid defense was a resounding success, though poor Hypergig now has a scar on his eye. Fortunately, an animal doesn't deal with mood penalties as human colonists do, so the pain should not affect him too much. Meanwhile, Harriet has been harvesting her rice fields. She later resows the crop and puts on her new toga. By the morning of the 3rd of August, the slavers have departed and Harriet moves to hunt. She chooses to predate on the alpaca, since they'll provide a decent amount of leather and meat with no risk of retaliation. She can then use the leather to finish her attire and the meat for meals. The first target takes quite a while to kill. The second, on the other hand, after a few wide shots, goes straight through the neurons. Upon the second butcher, Harriet begins tailoring herself a cowgirl hat. Items such as cowboy hats and dusters excel at dealing with heat, and since we're in a fairly hot environment, these items are in demand. With our essential clothing attained, our basic survival needs are attended to. We have shelter, food, a bed, a dining area, basic recreation, weapons, and clothing. Now, it is time to enhance our base. There are a number of projects that would accelerate our momentum, such as a freezer for food storage, electric production benches for more efficient crafting, lighting to remove the darkness debuff, automated turrets, etc. Electric power is the fork in the road that opens to a great variety of technological possibilities. Thus, we will build a research bench and begin studying how to construct a watermill generator to take advantage of the hydropower available on our map. Before we can begin this chore, the Kai Pact has another raid sent our way. Once again, Hypergig and Harriet will have to beat a misguided soul into a justified grave. As the attack comes to its conclusion, Harriet punches the raider in the head, and Hypergig follows up with his horn, effectively snapping the raider's neck. As Harriet cleans up the northern entrance to the base and tends to Hypergig, we can see that her medical skill is progressing along nicely. To which Randy replies, "Ah, is that so? Let me help you with that." The fucker slams us with sleeping sickness. This ailment causes pain and reduces consciousness and manipulation. It's also a very slow healing illness, so we'll concentrate ourselves on ridding Harriet of this bullcrap as fast as possible. On the upside, the crops are growing, we have food stocked up, and we have a guard rhino on our doorstep. To deal with this sickness efficiently, Harriet will use the herbal medicine she traded her prisoner for earlier in this episode. At 9 o'clock on the 5th of August, we get a forced weather quest. We're given a few reward options for 10 days of fog. Fog only affects weapon accuracy, which gives us an advantage when getting into melee, since we have a rhinoceros. As for which reward we want, the advanced components won't be of much use to us this early, nor will the hyperweave, whereas the plasteel will be necessary sooner or later for things such as a multi-analyzer, which we'll need for advanced research. As Harriet's payment lands, I notice that our food supply needs a refill. Since we're currently ahead on immunity, I judge it to be safe enough for a single hunting trip. The following morning, Randy pities Harriet and generates a psychic soothe for her. Methinks Randy has a little crush on our colonist. Later that night, Harriet resupplies her food stockpile with rice and immediately resows her field as visitors from the Abanbavexa Union pass by. I do love me an armed escort. Better still, the visitors see fit to give Harriet a stimulus check of 97 silver on their way out. On this positive note, we'll end episode 2. The raids are picking up steam, as are the diseases, but we've got a formidable guard dog and a secure shelter. On the next episode, we'll beat this illness and begin research on hydropower. As always, if you guys liked the episode, clickety-clack that like button and stay tuned with a subscription. If you don't like it, then show your disapproval by liking the video anyway. Don't forget to check the video description for links to the YouTuber that inspired me to make this series, to my Twitch channel where you can catch me live, to my Instagram where I have photos and videos of the animals at the rescue that I work for. As always, guys, I hope that you are happy, healthy, and safe. I will catch you on the next one.